Welcome, friends. In this first episode of a three-part podcast about my great-great-grandfather, Ludvig Nobel, the practical genius who turned the foul-smelling wild seeps of Baku, Azerbaijan's capital and biggest city, into a worldwide oil powerhouse that rivaled John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil. I'm Ludvig Nobel, a fifth-generation heir to this legacy, and through these episodes, I'll uncover his story, a saga of ruthless innovation, supply chain mastery, and a radical vision of workers as partners, not just expendable cogs. Ludvig didn't merely amass wealth, he forged a blueprint for sustainable peace through commerce, a model as vital today as it was in the 19th century. Born in 1831 Stockholm to a Swedish family of inventors and exiles, Ludvig was the second son amid dreamers and doers. His father, Emanuel Nobel, the visionary architect who pioneered submarine mines and escaped Sweden's economic ruin for Russia's allure, ignited his unyielding drive, while his elder brother Robert chased horizons in timber and exploration, and Alfred lost himself in chemical reveries that birthed dynamite and the Nobel Prizes. Ludvig emerged as the family's anchor, the executor who scaled ideas into fortunes. From his teenage years, Ludvig's genius shone in hands-on alchemy, blending his technical prowess with capitalist cunning. At 19, he reforged 100,000 obsolete rifles into modern breech loaders, rescuing the Nobels from bankruptcy. By age 31, Ludvig founded the Ludvig Nobel Engineering Works on the Okhta River in St. Petersburg, Russia. It grew into Russia's largest machine factory, hiring hundreds of workers to build steam engines, pumps, and boilers. When war contracts waned, he pivoted to civilian ingenuity, like cream separators and hydraulic presses, and even palace gates. His fortune at death, over 100 million rubles, worth billions of dollars today, far outstripped his brothers thanks to his smart strategy and vertical integration and controlling every step of production and nonstop business growth. One 19th century observer was amazed, saying Ludvig essentially built Russia's oil industry from the ground up on his own. He convinced the Russian emperors to construct vital railroads for transporting oil, hired and led thousands of workers across his operations, and mastered the entire production process from drilling raw crude oil at wells to refining and shipping high-value products like kerosene to customers worldwide. Ludvig Nobel died in 1888 with a personal fortune of over 100 million rubles. And again, that's equivalent to billions of dollars in today's money, making him by far the richest of the Nobel brothers. This massive wealth came from his genius in vertical integration, again, fully controlling every stage of production, from raw materials to finished goods, and his drive to constantly expand operations, turning small engineering workshops into sprawling industrial empire that outshone even Alfred's dynamite profits. But Ludvig's brilliance went far beyond balancing just the books. He championed better worker treatment as a sharp business strategy, not merely charity by banning child labor and skipping wage cuts for honest mistakes and launching casual idea sharing groups. In these groups, his loyal employees, affectionately called Nobelites, brainstormed improvements over simple meals of sausage and kvass. And kvass is a tangy, fizzy rye fermented drink popular at the time. Thanks to these worker friendly policies, productivity rose by 30%, and the strong loyalty from his team became his best protection against rivals. This way of doing business hit its peak in Baku with the launch of brand Nobel in 1879. There, Ludwig created the world's first oil tanker, the MS Zoroaster, a unique submerged burner that turned useless mazut waste, thick leftover sludge in the oil processing technique, into clean, efficient fuel. And he built long pipelines that stretched across the desert for safer oil transport. And by 1883, brand Nobel handled 25% of all Russia's oil output, a massive $10 million company worth billions in today's money. And this shipped products to Europe and Asia, smartly beating out the big competitors like the Rothschilds. Those rivals ran their own oil operations in Baku and went head to head with brand Nobel and John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil. Alfred earned the grim nickname the Merchant of Death for inventing dynamite, but his deep guilt planted the seed for the world's most revered prizes in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace. Deserved honors? Absolutely. Yet while Alfred chased dreams in his lab, Ludwig built lasting peace on the ground with reliable trade as its steady engine, strong infrastructure as its backbone, and a quiet revolution in human dignity as its heart. And as a modern descendant of the Nobel family, I see Ludwig's influence in today's innovators and workers, from the teams assembling iPhones to the pioneers building electric vehicles. Follow his lead. Train your people well, pay them fairly, and treat them like humans, and your success will multiply. He turned the messy, tar-covered chaos of Baku into a thriving center of business, connecting the gushing oil wells of the Caspian Sea to the lamps and fireplaces of European homes. True peace isn't just about treaties. It's about creating strong systems that empower everyday people. And Ludwig showed exactly how it works. Ludwig Nobel's greatest legacy shines in two intertwined triumphs: pioneering smart industrialization through inventions like the world's first oil tankers and these sprawling desert pipelines and efficient burners that recycled waste mazut into fuel, making crude oil safe, affordable, and ready for global scale, and championing humane leadership, showing that investing in worker housing, education, healthcare, and profit sharing wasn't just charity, but a shrewd edge over cutthroat rivals. This potent formula of unyielding engineering precision fused with visionary social care catapulted Baku from a chaotic backwater to a cornerstone of the world's energy stage, while at the same time etching a timeless model of ethical industry that resonates from factories to boardrooms today. Join me across 3 episodes. His youthful forge and Baku's black gold blaze, and from empire to enduring light. So, in this first episode, and I call it the sparks in the forge, the making of an industrial prodigy, we'll look at Ludvig Nobel's early life, from his tough childhood in Stockholm to the cold factories of St. Petersburg, where his hard work as a boy helped start Russia's industrial growth. And these years from 1831 to 1860s were more than just getting through hard times. They were the key experiences that shaped who he became. In 1842, when he was just 11 years old, Ludwig traveled across the cold Baltic Sea to reunite with his father, Emmanuel, in the grand but harsh city of St. Petersburg. Picture the frozen canals blocking the way and massive palaces that seem to just tower over their family's struggles. The threat of war was already in the air, and the family's workshop started making propellers and sea mines for what would become the Crimean War. By age 15, Ludwig began his apprenticeship under Herr Müller. And this guy was a tough Prussian teacher working in a hot, noisy forge. But there he learned the key engineering skills, like working with exact measurements called tolerances that would shape his future career. The 1850s were a tough time that really shaped Ludwig Nobel's character, like being tested in a fire. At age 19, he took over the family business and led a huge project to convert 100,000 old rifles from the Napoleonic era into modern breech loading guns. This was for Russia's military reforms under the Tsar. During this early 1850s work, turning those outdated rifles into up-to-date weapons for the Russian army, Ludwig wrestled with a big moral problem. He just felt bad about making money from and helping an empire that was based on serfdom. Serfdom was Russia's harsh system of almost slavery, where millions of peasants were tied to landowners like they were owned property. These people faced forced labor and constant abuse. As a young engineer who dreamed of building machines that helped create things rather than destroy them, Ludwig felt guilty about supplying arms to a strict dictatorial government that kept this unfair system going. Sure, the profitable contract pulled his family out of bankruptcy, but it created a conflict. His smart innovations were tangled up in supporting deep-rooted injustice. He wondered if saving the business was worth the price of just ignoring these bigger human rights issues. And this personal struggle hinted at his future changes, like better treatment for workers, where he tried to fix industry by adding kindness and fairness. Despite the fresh pain of losing his brother Emil to a deadly lab explosion and his first wife, Mina, to tuberculosis, Ludvig Nobel pushed ahead with fierce determination. In 1862, at just 31, he started the Ludvig Nobel Engineering Works along the Okata River in St. Petersburg. And here he turned the family's small workshop into a huge brick factory. Just imagine tall smokestacks that rose high into cloudy skies, puffing out steam as the powerhouse of Russian manufacture. Inside, rows of British lathes worked nonstop, producing exactly matched machine parts based on smart American ideas from rifle factories. But by 1865, the plant was vital to the Tsar's navy. It built engines for half the warships in the Baltic fleet, from big ironclads guarding the Neva River to smaller gunboats patrolling the empire's borders. But when the Crimean War's military contracts evaporated after Russia's hard fought and humiliating defeat in 1856, Ludwig didn't falter. He pivoted with surgical precision to civilian markets, a move that would define his legacy as an adaptable empire builder. His factories shifted gears to produce everyday marvels, centrifugal cream separators that revolutionized dairy farming across Russia's vast steppes, massive hydraulic presses for Baltic shipyards building merchant vessels, and even elaborate wrought iron gates that adorned the opulent palaces of St. Petersburg's nobility. This diversification was important, shielding the company from the devastating 1866 financial panic, a Europe wide crash sparked by crop failures, over speculation, and banking collapses that sent shockwaves through the continent. While lesser rivals crumbled and their idle machines rusted in bankruptcy's grip, Ludwig's engineering works not only endured, but thrived, laying the groundwork for the oil empire to come. It was here, amid the clang of hammers and the roar of steam engines, that the seeds of Ludwig's profound humanism first took root, a compassionate approach to the industry that would one day transform entire communities. In the rigid autocracy of Tsarist Russia, where factory owners wielded unchecked power and workers were little more than cogs in the machine, Ludwig's policies were nothing short of revolutionary. He outright banned child labor, sparing Russia's vulnerable youth from the grinding hazards of the factory floors, and eliminated the cruel practice of docking wages for just minor errors or accidents, ensuring paychecks arrive whole, fostering trust instead of fears. And his workers, they really affectionately were called Nobelites for their family like loyalty, lived in sturdy company dorms. These wooden buildings beat back St. Petersburg's brutal winters with potbelly stoves and shelves of technical books in three languages: Swedish for the immigrant engineers, Russian for the locals, and German for European machinists. To encourage fresh ideas from everyone, Ludwig started improvement circles, just casual after work meetings where people from all job levels got together, rolled up their sleeves, passed around mugs of this tangy kvass, and discussed ways to improve machine designs while eating basic snacks like sausage. These weren't empty chats. They led to actual inventions, such as a better boiler safety valve that cut explosion dangers by 80%, which got its creator a big bonus and a quick promotion. The results were undeniable and immediate. Absenteeism plummeted as people felt genuinely invested in the enterprise, and overall output soared by 30%, outpacing factories where fear ruled the day. And in the end, This fierce loyalty from his Nobelites became Ludwig's unbreakable moat, a protective barrier around his growing empire, shielding it from the strikes, sabotage, and high turnover that plagued his competitors and allowing his vision to flourish unchecked. This part of Ludwig Nobel's life, juggling his factory and family, wasn't just about getting through hard times. It was what built his strength and got him ready to tackle major challenges. So please join us for episode 2, Empire of Black Gold, and how Brand Nobel got started in a huge way. Oil, fierce storms on the Caspian Sea, and fair worker programs that were even more impressive than Rockefeller ideas. Please, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything and it'll help us a lot to grow. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye, everyone.